want to get to the judges thing because again, you're rocking the PFL hat. Professional Fighters League is there's a big fight coming up. We've gone to the brackets. Is it $1 million prize?
That's right, $1 million in each weight class, each of 6
amazing.
weight classes. So I believe the total purse package for that whole night is like $10 million for all the fighters. So.
And have you announced when it's going to be or where it's going to be?
It's going to be here at Madison Square Garden, the Hulu Theater on New Year's Eve.
That's
so
awesome.
It's going to be amazing. There'll be 6 new millionaires that night.
That is fantastic. Now, one person that didn't get the opportunity to fight for this final, who fought in the semifinals, Chris Wade.
Yeah.
Going back to the judges, it was seemed like one-dimensional fight.
It was an interesting fight, and obviously I was commentating, so I'm literally couldn't get any closer than I was, and I understood Chris's frustration with the outcome. It was a split decision. It was a very close fight, a hard fight to judge. And if you look at the cageonomics, what we call cageonomics, the punch stats, I mean, Chris threw well over 212 punches. Now, how many of those effectively landed? I think a fair amount of them, but to his opponent's 49. So I understand why he was frustrated, but his opponent kept plodding forward, walked through everything Chris threw at him. Chris wasn't able to take him down, wasn't able to stop his forward momentum, and he literally just chased Chris around. And sometimes that forward motion, if you're not hitting the guy and hurting him, you hit him a bunch. But if you're not rocking him, if you're not taking him down and putting him on his back and forcing him to fight off of his back, sometimes the judges, like Chris said, not always as astute as they could be. They're not getting punch stats during the scoring of the fight. They're going based on the aggression and what they're seeing in the cage in the moment. And I have to say I understood how they came up with that decision. I'm not sure if I agreed with it, but
you understood
it was very close, a tough fight to score.
It's interesting because you sit there and again, he is notorious for the UFC cut him because again, I'm looking at his other fights, he was more of a ground and pound or wrestler type, not as exciting as some other people said, but that fight was exciting.
It was exciting.
You can't deny that. One thing, one way or the other, he won fans that way.
His Kwame fight here in Long Island was ridiculous. It was like 2 sprinters come out of the blocks.
He's changing his game a little bit. He's changing his tactic a little bit, which is great, and that's awesome. That's how you. That's what you want to see. You want to see fighters change their tactic, whether it's change their tactic, but perform well enough where the fans oh my god.
I felt like Chris needed to score a takedown in that second or that third period. Natan Schultz just kept coming forward. If he was walking into him, instead of punching him, change levels, drive and put him on his back, make him scramble off his back. You do that once, maybe twice,
and that would swing.
And I think that swings it in the judges' minds.
What do you do? Because again, you were talking about the judges that maybe they don't really understand what they're even looking at times. They could be judged by the crowd, but by the final seconds of the fight. Okay, I think he got taken down twice. Chris Wade, that fight. There was a couple good leg kicks too by his opponent. But what can you do? I always hear Joe Rogan talk about you need more judges. You need more judges. Don't make it 3, man. Make it 10. Is there something else that you can come up with, or is this?
I don't know. I think we need a more judges, not of an event. I think 3 per fight is fine. It's an odd number. You need an odd number so that you don't get everybody agreeing. And it being even up.
You don't want those draws.
I think an education process for these judges, for both the ground fighting and, what constitutes a criteria for a 10-8 round. We saw that happen with Sean O'Connell. Needed a 10-8 round, and he got the 10-8 round. I'd love to hear the explanation of that criteria. And then an accountability. In wrestling, judges get a number, and they're responsible for the calls they make during a match, and they can get upgraded or downgraded based on those calls. Now, you only want the highest graded officials judging the big matches where there's literally guys' careers on the line. It's an easy system to implement that governing bodies could do that easily. Give these guys rankings, make them stand behind and articulate what they were thinking when they create those scores. If you can articulate that, there's always going to be a human factor that's not going away.
Right.
If a guy can articulate that, then at least now we have a place where we can start some dialogue
Right.
and maybe change his perception, or maybe he's going to say something that, okay, you know what, I can't disagree with that. I see why you saw it that way.
And there's so many technical things too. Like, as watching MMA, it's not just all right, how many strikes do you have? There's so many different areas to it. So it really does. You do need to be educated and understand what you're watching, because I guess so many people can interpret it so many different ways.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, on the other hand, it's bad when you get someone like Adelaide Bird, who was sitting there scoring Triple G Canelo the first time around that boxing fight. Then she was sitting there judging the Conor McGregor Habib fight, which didn't go to a decision. That went to a finale, thank goodness, and caused even more chaos after the fight was over. And that's one of those things. Like, we talk about Chris Wade getting on the mic and saying something that maybe you wouldn't deem appropriate. I mean, I understand, you might understand his frustration level, but I don't think you'd ever get on the mic and be like, call out the judges like that.
Yeah. You walk a fine line there. In how you represent. And I understand he was frustrated. He was caught up in the moment. He felt like he did everything he needed to do to win that fight. Yeah. Especially, I mean, I don't know how he got those cageonomics that quickly. He was still in the cage, and he knew he threw 212. I guarantee he wasn't counting when he was throwing them. So, but sometimes you have to be careful about how you come across. You sound like you come across like you're making excuses.
Bellator's around, UFC's the top bred, I guess you'd say, but there's more promotions coming around. Is this better for the sport that you have more promotions? And will we ever see some sort of like integration of PFL versus Bellator, champ versus champ?
Well, I think it's awesome for the sport. Certainly as a fighter, the more places I can go to sell my goods, basically to be considered a pro athlete and continue to make a living as a pro athlete, I think that's better for fighters. I think the thing that needs to happen is the Muhammad Ali Act needs to be amended. The definition needs to be changed from boxer to combative sports athlete. Yeah. That's simple. And simply doing that, you alleviate and create some transparency in the contracts that these promoters are able to sign fighters to, and you separate the powers from the promoter and the sanctioning body in MMA right now is the same guy. It's too much power. In boxing, the sanctioning bodies are a separate entity that fall under criteria of the governing bodies, the state athletic commissions. They have to meet certain criteria to be able to establish rankings and rank the fighters and create titles that then the promoters who sign fighters negotiate for the best deal so that their fighter can fight for those titles. That's where our sport needs to go. If you want the same free and open market that boxing enjoys, then boxers are like Floyd Mayweather are able to represent themselves and get a bigger piece of the pie. That's what needs to happen. As long as we're using the current system, it's never going to be a free and open market. There's going to be a bunch of separate entities with their own little fighters and their own world champions, all competing in their own little marketplace.
No, and I listen. Right now, there's so many talented athletes and MMA artists out there that you kind of want to see those super fights, which we're getting slowly. You were part of a bunch of super fights too. James Toney,
I wanted to fight Fedor Emelianenko, who was a big Pride property at that time, and was managed and represented by M1 Global. And the only way they were going to make that happen is to do a co-promotion with M1. And the UFC's like, no way, we're not doing a co-promotion. That fight will never happen. So,
is that the one fight that you
That was the one I chased. I kind of just took whoever they wanted me to fight. That was just my attitude about it. Didn't matter. I'll fight anybody. And that was the one fight. Most rankings had him as the number one heavyweight in the world and me as the number 2 heavyweight in the world. Well, how do we change that? How do we settle that? We fight. So, that was the fight I wanted.
And talk about freak shows. Again, we haven't really touched on the Conor McGregor, Habib Nurmagomedov stuff. How bad do you think that reflects the sport? Do because for someone who's, I've been a fan forever. I've been watching you fight for the longest times. And very rarely have you seen anything that's gone that far. You've seen a couple people, do something after the fight's over, but nothing too crazy. Yeah. Not to cause such a scene like that. And finally, the biggest, quote unquote, biggest fight in MMA history, that's how it ends. Do you feel like there's a black eye?
Well, I feel like it's been coming. I feel like we keep rewarding and wanting to see this type of behavior. I mean, come on, from Conor McGregor snatching up Aldo's belt and getting in Aldo's face, throwing water bottles at Diaz brothers, throwing a hand truck through a tour bus,
Injuring people.
and injuring people. I mean, we just continue to see this type of thing escalate. He pulled out all the stops in the news, in the presser against Khabib. Insulted his family, his culture, a whole bunch of things. So really, at some point, where do you draw the line? Where do you say, hey, man, don't say stuff like that. It's offensive. It's, sooner or later, somebody's going to react. Somebody's going to respond. Now, I was surprised that Khabib took it all that, even when he tried to kick him at the weigh-ins. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go off on somebody, that's a pretty good time
super cool after that.
to go off
super
on them,
cool.
and would have been completely justified.
Yeah.
To wait till after he just had a near flawless performance and then have this guy outside the cage get under your skin, I just didn't understand it. I almost felt like it was part of it. Like they're orchestrating a rematch. They're trying to. This doesn't make sense to me how you would go this far after all that's been said and done, and now you just kick the hell out of the guy, and you're going to let them take that moment of glory from you? Yeah. It just didn't make any sense to me. I felt bad for him. That he let that happen, but I just feel like we've been heading towards this train wreck for quite some time because these types of antics have been rewarded.
Yeah, and it's weird because Conor, this is who he is. We reward it, and he just keeps on getting bigger and bigger paydays.
Yeah. Why? I mean, why? Did the fans really want to see that? Is that what
a lot of
people
that I hear, because there's a lot of casual fans in New York. The one thing about New York is we love UFC, but there's not everyone's attached to it because it's still so young over here. Mm-hmm. It really is 2-3 years old now.
Yeah.
So it's still building. He has some sort of aura to him, and a lot of people just want to see him get his ass beat. That's what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are like, I'll pay the money just to watch him get beat up. Kind of like the Floyd Conor thing, when a lot of people bought that because it's hopefully someone's going to get their ass kicked.
Yeah, they kind of want to see them both get their butts kicked.
If only there was a third person who jumped in there.